Welcome to Driven, the Unscripted Success podcast, with your hosts, Mike Menino and Nariman Hamden, bringing you insights and stories on achieving personal, professional, and financial success.
Hi, everybody. It's Michael Menino. Welcome to Driven Unscripted Success podcast. Today on the podcast, we're interviewing professionals who share their experience with you, the audience, and how they got to where they're at today. And this is Michael Berdan from Cape Canaveral. We were talking about how he's watching the space shuttles take off and land for the beginning of the interview. And he had an aerospace company in Texas, and now he has a wind company in Florida. So this guy's been all around the world doing high-level engineering. Is that the best way I could describe it?
Yeah, absolutely.
So, Mike, how you doing?
Good. Good morning, everyone, and good morning, Mike.
Thank you. Michael, do me a favor. We touched on this on the pre-interview, and I was wondering if you could tell me a little bit about yourself, where you came from. We both came from Michigan to Florida, and tell me about your trip and how you got to where you're at today.
Sure. Absolutely. Originally, I was born in Toronto, Canada, and went to school and graduated there. And when I graduated, I got an opportunity to go work in Detroit at an injection molding builder up in Auburn Hills, and it really opened my eyes to technology, and we started expanding into CAD CAM, CNC programming. This was back in the early 80s, and so got to be at the forefront of the revolution of CAD CAM and design and screen and animation. And today it's so different. You've got 3D visuals, you can rotate cars and bodies. So I worked in that field for a while, and then I had an opportunity to visit a good friend that I had worked with in the past in Dallas. And I didn't realize it was kind of a promotional interview. So I went down to Dallas, and he was showing me some of the aerospace companies that he was doing some design work for, and he introduced me to a company down there that was involved with VIP aircraft, and I am talking not VIP like a little decked out Learjet. I'm talking 747s that are purchased for $50 million, and they put $300 million interiors in them. And, for Saudi princes, for head of state aircraft. And when I saw that, my eyes just rolled and said, I got to get involved with this. Everything was gold plated, custom built, one of a kind. So I took the opportunity and moved down to Dallas and started working for this gentleman and helped him grow the company. And then right after 9/11, which was a really tough time, as you know, especially in the aerospace industry, because a lot of standards and regulations were changing. I started my own company and became a U.S. citizen through the channels, and so that I could do work that my customers wanted me to do that were very, very secretive or advanced, and that gave me an opportunity to do some things and see stuff, getting to work on EFY-22, getting to work on Bell helicopter stealth projects, and working with Bombardier and a lot of the other aircraft companies, as well as some of the automotive, because in Dallas, you've got Peterbilt, which is a fantastic trucking company just north, and they build trucks on order. So it's not like an assembly line. You place an order, and that order gets filled up as it goes through the assembly line and puts all the components, custom components that you order, and the truck comes out finished specifically for your requirements. So that was really the fun and exciting part, and got to work with Pratt and Whitney, GE, working on their test beds where they would build new engines. They both own 747s, and they have to test these engines, so they take off the number two engine off the 747, put this new engine on. We would build all the structures, the pylons, the components to attach the engine to the aircraft, which was, really, really outstanding products and engineering alone. So stuff like that we got to work on, which was pretty exciting and unique stuff that a lot of people only get to see or hear 5 or 10 years after it's been finished. So that made it exciting. And then obviously the wind company, as we talked earlier, was kind of a bit of a challenge. And if it wasn't for
Well, tell everybody about the wind company first. And you had a nice story about how you worked with your daughter too.
Yeah, so we were introduced, in Texas. There was a gentleman, Tom Carbone, who has been in the big wind industry all his life. He's recognized worldwide as a consultant in the wind industry. And he had came to our company and saw what we did and said, hey, there's nobody in the United States making really good small wind technology for urban environments or homeowners. Would you be interested? And I said, no, absolutely not. I don't want to get into consumer products. Consumers are some
famous last words from every businessman.
Yeah, some of the smartest people, because they will dig in and they will want a Ferrari at the price of a Chevrolet.
Right. And you just got done from the aerospace industry where everything's gold plated. So yeah, it's almost a step down. I'm sorry about that.
No, I mean, it's, and as we were talking, when my eldest daughter graduated from university, all the young kids have such a great vision, and they want to do something. They want to try and make an impact as quickly as possible when they leave school. And she worked for me part-time, so she knew Tom and what he was trying to do. And she said, look, Dad, if I get involved and help you, and I can do some research and I can do some stuff, can I work with you on it? And who's going to turn down your daughter? So I said, okay, let's do it. And around 2008 or so, we started doing some research, working with Tom and working with different designs. And we wanted to do something different because universities are very unique, and people need to take more advantage of what they do. They go out and the students do their degrees based on research and testing, and then a lot of that information just gets put aside. And so we went out and we started researching small wind, University of Hamburg, University of Caltech, UCLA, all these different universities. What were they looking at? What were they researching? And it was surprised that she was able to correlate, a design from this university can match with a design from this university. And so we started putting it all together, and then, using our, high-end aerospace CAD/CAM software, started to do some computational fluid dynamics, some testing, some stress loading. And, the result ended up being a small dual vertical wind turbine. And when we were able to get it in a wind tunnel and get it tested, the professors at the university that were testing went, holy cow, on average, we're happy to see a 32% efficiency. 34 maybe is exciting. We were hitting 45.
Really?
So,
you're almost 50%.
Yeah, outstandingly higher than anyone else. So, once we saw that, it just became part of the mechanics. Let's put something together that, will last, because if people are going to buy something, I don't want to, some of the research we found and the complaints of a lot of our people we dealt with was, hey, I've had this thing for a year and a half. It's broken down. The materials aren't lasting in the cold weather. They're getting
Or
frozen,
hot. We talked
cracking.
about that earlier. Hot, like you were talking about the Florida weather and
Yeah,
the saltwater desecration of any material.
yeah, absolutely. So that was our intent. Is I told everyone, if I'm going to do this, it's it. I'm putting my name on it, and when I put my name on it, I'm going to make sure that
It's done right.
it's done right and the reputation stays there.
Hmm.
Even though we can't think of everything all the time, because we have had experiences along the way of unexpected things that we never anticipated. And here's a quick example. We set up a wind turbine in a school in Dallas, and later that year we experienced a ice storm in
Oh
Dallas.
yeah, yeah. Was that the time of the first ice storm in Texas history that we knew of, or something like that?
Yeah, and so the ice was building up a half-inch thick on the blades,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then the storm built up afterwards. So now we have a turbine that is overweighted, out of balance, just spinning crazily, and we were breaking the blades, we were snapping the brackets, and so we once we found out from the client, we took it all down. Obviously, we replaced it with an improved product, but those are the lessons that
Yeah,
during engineering you just can't prepare for. And we see that in life with cars, with airplanes,
yeah,
with all kinds of
absolutely.
products. So
Well,
so
every product has to be product tested, and the
yeah,
product testing's for we're doing some software stuff, and we got to product test it, and it's just you just put it out there and then fix it as you go. I mean,
absolutely.
that's the definition of product testing, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean the main thing is if you have someone who's invested into our product, I want to make sure that it's not stuck with them. So if we find a solution or we improve something, we'll notify them and say, look, let us take that down, we'll replace it with a new one, or let us, take that, make the changes, put it back up, so you don't have this issue. And that's a big part of it. And I think through the history of small wind, other companies didn't do that. You bought something, and if it didn't work, they said, "Oh well, hey, buy another one." And
Well, that
so
that that customer relations what's the term we use in business? Uh, Follow up is so important that most
it's
people don't understand. Follow up in what you're doing right now for your company is probably one of the most important things you could do, other than the inventing of it at first, and then the follow up is probably second in business.
no, absolutely, you're right because like I said, it's my reputation, and
Yep. Yeah.
you can do 100 things right, you do one thing wrong, and everybody remembers the wrong issue. So, as a result, we don't mass produce these things. We build them, like I said, specifically for
Custom.
the clients, and we assemble them. I go down and assemble.
Really.
Yeah. I mean, I put the units together. I'll even go on site with some of the clients and say, hey, if we do this, it'll be better. Let's do this, or if they don't quite understand, like some of our distributors are solar people, which are great people and they have, good
They have
technology,
installers.
but they've never installed a wind turbine. So, they'll ask, hey, Mike, can you come out for this first one and work with my technician? So he
Yeah.
understands what's happening. So we'll do that and I'll do that. And I've traveled, from Canada I've been in Nicaragua in the jungle, putting these things up with bamboo lifting poles, because they don't have cranes and stuff down there.
Bamboo lifting poles.
Yeah,
Wow.
it's amazing what people can come up with when they have a need for something. And we've had them in Belize, Puerto Rico, all kinds of exciting places, and it's a lot of fun. But I was always taught to be a good engineer, you've got to go down and work on your own stuff. Because it's so easy for me. If I can't get my hand in to tighten something, nobody else can. So,
Right.
the nice thing is I can walk back upstairs, get on my CAD system, make the change, open the gap, boom, all the next product has that improvement immediately.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Real quick, what is one of the biggest challenges you had to overcome in your career, and how did you do it?
Yeah. I'm just trying to think what my challenges are.
You can
It's
be a
been,
current one too, when you're overcoming as we speak.
well, obviously currently, the biggest issue is the uncertainty of what goes on in politics.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So, we
And
could
this is 2025. If someone watches this in 2027, the political, how do I put this? The political atmosphere is charged in September of 2025.
yeah, yeah. So I think that has been the biggest challenge when you're trying to build something for consumers, because
Gotcha.
every government entity wants to get involved, whether it's the UL or whether it's the small wind energy, whether it's the government or the cities or the inspectors who come out. Well, I don't know what that is. I can't certify that. I have no idea. We've never seen that before. So, well, don't
It's
worry
a
about it.
could you just say it's a windmill and it's not qualified in anything you're worried about, and hopefully
That's what, yeah, yeah. And
that's what you go for.
well, we had our challenges because, there was a time in 2016 and early where there was a lot of push for certifications for small wind. Well, the definition of small wind was, 100 kilowatts or more. I mean, we only produce, 4 or 5. So,
So
there,
100, that's a pretty high bar. That's pretty
yeah,
good. So
and
you had no problems, right? I mean, once you got into that, they're like hopefully pretty much leave you alone.
well, not really. See, the thing
No.
was, it's a government agency and they're funded by the government.
Yeah.
So the more products or the more companies they can transition your certification through, the more funding they get.
Yes,
And,
I agree.
so it's not that they're doing the wrong thing. I mean, I see what they're doing and it makes great sense. We've got to have, some standards and safety, which makes great sense. So, what we ended up doing was changing our philosophy because, in the renewable energy or in the solar and wind, everybody had to connect to the grid. You have to connect it to your panel box. The grid's gotta be involved. And so a lot of certification was built around the grid. The inverters have to be certified. We have to make sure it shuts down and the power output. So, in order for us to sort of change our philosophy and work with, ranchers and farmers and people who go, we don't want to deal with the government. We don't want these inspectors out here. What can we do to just put this thing up and not worry about waiting 4 months for a certification? And
Right.
We can get into that,
But isn't it
quite dramatically.
if I'm not mistaken, you don't have to hook up to the grid. We talked earlier, and you said you can be out. And what was it? A pump for feed or cattle or water. So you can put electric pump out. Your system can put out electric pump in the middle of nowhere with no power lines going to it and no connections at all. Correct?
Exactly. Yeah.
So do you need any certifications on something like that?
No, that's the nice thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Now that's the way to do business, my friend.
Yeah. And the transition of taking our energy that we produce and putting it into batteries.
That's my next question.
Yeah. If you're storing it, there's no certification anywhere in North America required because that's your private energy.
So what I hate to keep interrupting you, but what I've noticed is a trend going to uh, off-site, we'll say rural areas, and making a farm, and then make digging a well, not digging a well, but making a well, and then you could have that hooked up to your house, and then you'd have no power company, you'd have no well company, you have a septic field, and then you're completely free off. We call it off grid. So you can literally help people get off grid, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, wind is reluctant on how much wind you have. The more wind, the more energy. The less wind, the less. Like solar. In the morning, you're producing less. By noon, you're producing more. At nighttime, you're not producing anything. So, our philosophy is we love to partner with solar, because the hybrid, the combination gives us access along the coast here. Usually in the heat of the day in Florida, there's almost no wind, but the sun
Well,
is
in the
shining.
summers, right? In the
Yep.
winters, there's always wind, right? So really, the time of year.
Yeah, and it also depends on, as the land heats during the daytime, the winds start to pick up in the evening. And consequently we get a lot of afternoon storms and weather conditions here in Florida or along the coast because of that convection of the heat rising, and then the winds off the coast or off the Gulf start moving in. And that's when the wind starts picking up to take over, as the solar starts to fade. So it makes great relationship. Up north, we've got units in Alaska and Canada. Alaska, you get 6 months of darkness. You
Right,
spend $40,000 on a solar system that for 4 months isn't going to produce you anything. So
right.
having the wind partner with the solar, you know,
That's a great idea.
yeah, it gives them the idea of working together. And what's really great is the electronics today, the new inverter technology is absolutely allowing us to do all of that. We've partnered with Solarc out of Dallas. Solarc has a wind option inside their inverter, so we could hook up wind, solar, battery to the grid or off the grid. And if you've got a generator, if none of that's working, it activates the generator. So, that technology is really, really just uh, becoming available to us. So we're jumping on that bandwagon and becoming a part of that as well.
Well, yeah, that sounds very cool and crazy. I like it. I like it a lot. Um, Sounds like things are going pretty good for you. Wondering, have you ever done anything in the future to create passive income? Trying to give some people some ideas on how to make money for doing nothing.
Yeah, yes and no. Yes, I've had
Okay.
other wind companies or other professors from around the world reach out and say, "Hey, we like your technology. We are thinking of doing this. Can you take a look at our design and give us some feedback?" And I tell them, "Look, I am not an expert wind or energy guy. I have learned over the last 20 years, what people have taught me, or listening to people like you on your podcast, bringing experts on and saying, 'Hey, you could do this, you could do that.'" So you become educated because there isn't really someone who knows it all and can teach you. So you get educated along the way, and like I said, we've made our mistakes along the way, but
Everybody has.
yeah, but yeah, I've talked with people and looked at stuff and thought, hey, this is a great idea. You know, the problem becomes when you have a great idea is you have to get it to market. And how do
Mhm.
you get it to market? Well, you have to know manufacturing, you've got to know customers, you got to know price ranges. This great idea that's $100,000, who can afford it? How do we get the price down? How can we use materials? Just like the process we went through, changing our materials and changing our design along the way to not only get costs down, but bring efficiency and longevity of the product up makes a huge
Yep.
sense. But most of my background has been companies or aerospace companies or people coming and saying, Mike, we've got a problem. We need to solve this. Any ideas, or how can we make this part? We only need one or two, so we're not going to set up a whole process to make 1,000. We've only got two we need. And we've done that for NASA. We've done that for Lockheed. Like I said, our test aircraft, they're only going to test one engine or maybe two. And so this pylon that mounts the engine to the aircraft, you're only going to make one. And so you've got to make it right the first time. You got to make it cost effective, because everybody has a budget, except for government entities.
Government doesn't have a budget.
Yeah, I keep teasing that. All my neighbors here, being in Cape Canaveral, are ex space shuttle guys, and when I'm building prototypes in my garage, they come with their chairs and a cold beer. They sit at the end of my driveway and
love watching you.
Yeah, shake their head at me, say, "What the heck are you doing now?" And so it's kind of fun, but yeah. I try and keep to myself as much as possible, because, I learn from others, but I don't want to mislead or direct people with my ideas, because there's a lot of great ideas out there, and
there is,
and I think, you want to do something, or you want to do something that takes an impact. It takes a bit of a risk,
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So
agreed. Without risk, there's no reward.
Absolutely.
Hey, Mike, real quick, this is a question I like asking people towards the end of the interview. We're a little bit more seasoned than most. So if you go back to your 20s, knowing everything you know now, what would you do different, and what would you do the same?
Well, to be honest, I think I jumped in to a great field. I mean, we see today, AI taking over, very, very high professional jobs, but, engineering, the guys on the shop floor building molds and tools and mechanics and stuff, those jobs are going to be there for life. And they're very satisfying. I have two older brothers who've went a different way. I have an older one that's, a PhD, he's a doctor, and he does love doing research and development there. And my brother, who's just a little older than I am, he went into finance, and now he's a VP of operations in a bank in Canada. And we argue and discuss all the time about businesses and dealing with banks and dealing with the government, and it's. But I don't think I would change anything. I love what I
really. You're the first person that said that.
Yeah. I love what I do. I like getting my hands on things. I like getting dirty. I like developing, coming up with new things. And I think that having had that opportunity, which very few kids today sort of find that path. I feel very comfortable. I don't think there's a lot there may have been some business decisions that
there you go, that you would have done differently. There you go.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think what
hindsight's 2020.
Yeah. I mean, it's kind of like you look back, and if you got a few, here's a story that I saw that really just sort of impressed me. It was a grandfather and his grandson, and they were at an air show. And the grandson is, telling his grandpa, "Hey, look, Dad," or "Look, Grandpa, look at these fighter jets. Look at how fast they fly. Look at all the stuff they have. Back in your day, you didn't have anything like that." And he turns to the kid, says, "Back in my day, those are our designs and those are our products."
Right.
So it was our generation that's giving it to you. So I look back and say, hey, I've got stuff that I've done on the space station. I've got stuff on jet fighters. I got stuff on commercial airplane. I got stuff on Peterbilt trucks that are made today. So, I have a legacy of of components that I've been involved with that have, sort of benefited the aspects of every part of life. And how can you not be excited about that?
No, you can't. You've done a lot of cool, crazy stuff. I love the stuff that you worked on space station. That is pretty interesting. Um, I can't thank you enough for your time. You've done a great job, and hopefully people, in engineering could get a lot of wisdom from what you just said today. If anybody would like to get in touch with you and find out about B-Wave, how would they do that?
Yeah, so our website, which is under construction, but it's still available, is at be-win.com. My email address is on there, as well as a contact phone number if you need to reach out. And as we're growing, we've got some sales partners that we're bringing on board. And if you live in a part of the country where we have a distributor, then we can have our distributor reach out to you and help you and advise you and so forth. So yeah, that's the best way, is through email.
Okay, cool. Hey, Michael, thank you very much for being on the show. Really do appreciate it. And if you guys would like to, give Michael a call and find out about B-Win. This is you got an aerospace engineer working on wind turbines that brought up the efficiency at least 15%. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
All right, Michael, thank you very much for being on the show. Appreciate it.
I appreciate it. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to Driven, the Unscripted Success Podcast. Want to share your story? Apply to be a guest at drivensuccesspodcast.com/guest.